What if a simple game could unravel your entire life in just one afternoon? Imagine sitting down for a friendly game of checkers, only to have everything you know spiral out of control in a way no one saw coming. It all began in a small community center in Millwood, a quiet town where nothing much ever happened. The air was thick with tension that day, but no one expected what followed would reach millions online and drag the most unlikely person, Elon Musk, right into the chaos. The video surfaced late that evening, capturing a checkers match gone terribly wrong. The clip showed a heated exchange between two players, their voices rising, the crowd murmuring, and suddenly one player, Sarah Miller, making a bold move that sparked an explosion of anger from her opponent. What happened next shocked everyone: a collision, an accidental shove, a fall, and then chaos. The footage ended with whispers of confusion, an injured man on the floor, and Sarah standing frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. As this video circulated, social media exploded with speculation, accusations, memes, and wild theories. But before the storm hit, Sarah was just a woman trying to find her place in the world. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Sarah Miller was a figure of quiet strength in Millwood. At 32, she carried with her a past marked by loss and struggle, the kind that shaped her into the woman who found refuge in the simple pleasure of checkers. Raised by her mother after her father disappeared during her early teens, Sarah grew up learning to rely on herself. Her mother, a soft-spoken woman with a love for old board games, had taught Sarah the art of strategy, patience, and resilience through countless evenings playing checkers by the fireplace. The game wasn't just a pastime. It was a connection to her family, a thread woven into the fabric of her childhood memories. But Sarah's life wasn't free of hardship. The loss of her mother 3 years prior had left a void that felt both heavy and empty, a grief she masked behind a steady smile. The small town of Millwood, with its familiar streets and faces, was where she tried to rebuild, working as a librarian and quietly dreaming of something more. Her closest companion was Marcus, a childhood friend who had become a local journalist. Marcus was the kind of friend who knew her past pains and silent hopes without judgment, always ready with a joke or a listening ear. Then there was Jake, a newcomer to town with a tech startup background, whose easy charm and genuine interest in Sarah's quiet world sparked a light she hadn't felt in years. That fateful day at the community center was supposed to be like any other, a casual tournament where locals gathered to compete, chat, and share stories. Sarah arrived early, the scent of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the faint smell of worn wood from the old tables. She greeted familiar faces, found her seat, and prepared mentally to play the game she loved. The atmosphere, however, shifted quickly. Tension simmered beneath the surface as Sarah's opponent, a man known locally for his aggressive style, seemed more interested in confrontation than the game itself. Words were exchanged, sharp and cutting, and soon the friendly match devolved into a battle of wills. Sarah's moves were calculated, her focus unshaken despite the rising hostility. But then came the moment that changed everything, a controversial jump, a disputed move that ignited anger. The opponent stood, voice raised, accusations flying. In the chaos, an accidental shove sent the man staggering backward, crashing into a table and falling hard. The room fell silent before erupting into confusion and alarm. The video captured all of this, raw and unfiltered, and within hours it had spread beyond Millwood's borders. Online, reactions ranged from sympathy for Sarah to outrage and condemnation. Hashtags trended. Comment sections flooded with opinions and insults. Some called for justice, others defended her. Amid the storm, an unexpected twist occurred. Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur and provocateur, weighed in with a tweet that set the internet ablaze: checkers isn't just a game anymore. What's next? AI referees? Hashtag checkers tragedy. His comment amplified the chaos, turning a local incident into a global spectacle overnight. Sarah, unprepared for this digital onslaught, found herself thrust into a harsh spotlight. Online harassment and threats poured in, her phone never quiet. Yet, through the noise, she discovered an unlikely community, checkers enthusiasts and Musk supporters who saw her as more than just a viral moment. Marcus stepped in to help, using his journalistic skills to sift fact from fiction and protect Sarah's story from distortion. The once peaceful life Sarah knew had shifted into something unrecognizable. The weight of public scrutiny pressed heavily on her, but beneath the surface, a spark of hope began to grow. What pushed Sarah forward was not fame or sympathy, but the memory of her mother's gentle voice reminding her to keep playing, no matter how tough the game got. As the digital storm raged, the question remained, could a simple checkers game teach the world about resilience, empathy, and the unexpected ways technology intertwines with human lives? This is the beginning of Sarah Miller's journey, one that would challenge everything she believed and force her to face a future she never imagined. Will she find peace amid the chaos? Will the truth behind the viral tragedy emerge? And what role will Elon Musk play in a story no one saw coming? Stay tuned. Sarah Miller's life before the viral incident was a mosaic of quiet struggles and deep emotional currents. Growing up in Millwood, a small town nestled between rolling hills and whispering pine trees, her childhood was marked by moments of warmth and sudden loss. Her mother, Linda, was a beacon of kindness and strength, working as a nurse at the local clinic and spending evenings teaching Sarah the art of checkers. Those games were more than a pastime, they were lessons in patience, strategy, and resilience. Every piece matters, Sarah, her mother would say. Sometimes you have to lose a few to win the game. Those words stayed with her long after Linda passed away unexpectedly from illness when Sarah was 29. Her father, David Miller, was a different story altogether. Once a promising engineer, he left the family when Sarah was 13, swallowed by his own demons of addiction and regret. The scars of abandonment ran deep, and for years Sarah harbored a conflicted mix of anger and longing. Despite his absence, the hope that he might one day return flickered quietly in her heart, a fragile thread woven through her memories. School was a refuge but not without its challenges. Sarah was shy, often retreating into the sanctuary of books and board games. The local library where she now worked was a place where she found comfort in stories that transported her beyond the boundaries of her town. It was also where she met Marcus. They had been inseparable since elementary school, bonded by shared adventures and the kind of understanding that doesn't need many words. Marcus knew about her struggles, her hopes, and the wounds she carried beneath her calm exterior. His career as a journalist had brought him back to Millwood after years in the city, and he was quietly proud of the small community he helped chronicle. Sarah's relationship with Jake was newer but significant. Jake had moved to Millwood from Seattle, bringing with him the energy of a tech innovator and a heart that seemed to beat in time with Sarah's quiet rhythms. Their connection was gentle, growing over late-night talks and weekend hikes, offering Sarah a glimpse of a life filled with possibilities beyond the shadows of her past. Yet, beneath the surface of this fragile stability, Sarah carried a lingering fear of loss. The memories of her mother's death were a silent shadow, the pain of abandonment from her father a constant ache. Checkers had been her anchor, the one thing she could control, a game that reflected life's unpredictability in its simple red and black squares. Each move required thought, patience, and courage. It was in this world of strategy and quiet determination that Sarah found her identity. When the community center tournament was announced, Sarah saw it as a chance to reconnect with that part of herself. The center was a familiar place, its walls lined with photos of past events and smiling faces. The smell of old wood mingled with the faint scent of coffee and baked goods from the adjoining cafe. Here, she felt safe, part of a community that understood the value of tradition and the comfort of shared moments. The day of the incident started with a calm that belied what was to come. Sarah arrived early, carrying a worn leather case containing her checkers board, a gift from her mother. She smiled at familiar faces and took a moment to breathe in the quiet buzz of anticipation. The tournament had drawn a diverse crowd, children, retirees, casual players, and serious competitors alike. Sarah's opponent that day was Tom Greer, a man known around town for his fierce competitiveness and quick temper. He was older, with a weathered face and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The two had played a few times before, with Tom's aggressive style often leaving Sarah feeling cornered but determined. The game started with a measured pace, pieces moving carefully across the board, strategies unfolding like a slow dance. But beneath the surface, tension simmered. Tom's comments grew sharper, his tone more confrontational. Sarah held her ground, her moves precise, refusing to be rattled. As the game progressed, Tom accused her of cheating after a disputed jump. Voices rose, and the crowd leaned in, sensing the shift from friendly competition to confrontation. Sarah tried to calm the situation, but Tom's frustration spilled over. When Tom suddenly shoved the board, scattering pieces across the table, the room erupted. In the chaos, he lost his balance, stumbling into a nearby table and falling hard. The video captured the moment with raw clarity, Sarah frozen in shock, the crowd gasping, and Tom writhing in pain. Emergency services were called, and the incident quickly became the talk of the town. For Sarah, the hours that followed were a blur. What was meant to be a simple game had turned into a nightmare. When the video hit social media, everything changed. The clip spread like wildfire, crossing state lines and attracting attention from news outlets and influencers. The comment sections were filled with heated debates. Some saw Sarah as a victim, others painted her as the aggressor. The unexpected twist came when Elon Musk, known for his sharp wit and unpredictable tweets, entered the conversation. His brief but provocative comments sent shockwaves through the internet, turning a local incident into a global spectacle. Sarah's phone buzzed non-stop with notifications, many of them cruel and threatening. The anonymous attacks were overwhelming, but so was the support from unexpected corners, Checkers fans from around the world, tech enthusiasts following Musk's tweets, and even strangers offering words of encouragement. Marcus stepped in, helping Sarah navigate the media storm. He used his platform to share her side of the story, emphasizing the complexities and urging empathy. Together, they crafted a narrative that sought to move beyond the viral outrage and focus on healing and understanding. Through it all, Sarah grappled with a whirlwind of emotions: fear, anger, shame, and resilience. The game she loved had become a symbol of something much larger, a reflection of how quickly life can change and how fragile our reputations are in the digital age. Yet, beneath the chaos, a quiet hope took root. Sarah remembered her mother's words about losing a few pieces to win the game and began to see this ordeal as a challenge to be met with courage. She realized that this moment could be a turning point, a chance to reclaim her story and perhaps, in doing so, help others caught in the unforgiving glare of the internet spotlight. The people who mattered, Marcus, Jake, and a growing community of supporters, reminded her that she was not alone. Each message of kindness was a lifeline, each act of solidarity a small victory. The path ahead was uncertain, but Sarah felt ready to face it, armed with the strength of her past and the unexpected power of connection. The viral video was only the beginning. What unfolded next would test everything Sarah believed about herself, the meaning of justice, and the complicated dance between technology, media, and human emotion. Her journey was about to take a turn that no one in Millwood could have imagined, one that would bring her face to face with one of the world's most influential figures and challenge the very nature of truth and empathy in the digital age. The game had changed. Now, it was no longer about checkers, it was about survival, hope, and the power of a single voice to make a difference. Sarah Miller was ready to play. The days following the viral video were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions for Sarah Miller. As the initial shock faded, the reality of her new public life settled in, revealing cracks and tensions she had never anticipated. The community center that once felt like a safe haven now seemed like a battleground, the friendly faces replaced by whispers and sideways glances. Even those who had supported her before began to question their loyalties, caught up in the frenzy of the internet storm. Sarah's closest relationships became both her lifeline and her battlefield. Marcus, ever steady, remained a constant presence. He was more than a friend now, he was her advocate, confidant, and sometimes her only voice of reason when the world felt too loud. He used his platform as a journalist to tell the deeper story behind the viral clip, highlighting Sarah's history, the complexity of the incident, and the dangers of snap judgments in the age of social media. Marcus's articles painted Sarah not as a villain or victim, but as a human being caught in an impossible situation, a portrayal that slowly began to shift public opinion. Meanwhile, Sarah's relationship with Jake faced new pressures. Jake, who had always admired Sarah's quiet strength, now struggled with the intense scrutiny that came with her sudden notoriety. His own work in the tech world exposed him to the darker side of viral fame, and he worried about how the endless online attacks might affect her mental health. Despite his support, their once easy connection became strained as Sarah withdrew inward, trying to protect herself from the emotional onslaught. Family matters added another layer of complexity. The incident reopened old wounds with her father, David. After years of silence, David reached out, his message hesitant and filled with regret. The timing was both a blessing and a curse. Sarah wrestled with the anger she had buried for years and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find some peace. Their conversations were awkward at first, shadowed by the past but slowly revealing glimpses of understanding. This fragile reconciliation became a source of strength for Sarah, reminding her that healing was possible even in the most broken relationships. At the heart of the rising conflict was the community's divided response. Some rallied around Sarah, organizing events to support her and speaking out against online harassment. Others demanded accountability, calling for the community center to take action against what they saw as reckless behavior. The center itself became a focal point of tension, caught between preserving its reputation and supporting its members. Protests were held outside its doors, with signs demanding justice and calls for reform in how conflicts were handled. Sarah felt torn, caught between wanting to stand up for herself and fearing that her presence might only deepen divisions. Amid the turmoil, new challenges emerged. Anonymous threats began to arrive in Sarah's inbox, harsh words that chipped away at her resolve. The local police opened an investigation into the incident and the online harassment, but progress was slow. Sarah's safety became a concern not just online but in real life, forcing her to be cautious in everyday moments she once took for granted. Yet, even in these dark times, moments of hope flickered. Sarah found solace in the small victories. A kind message from a stranger, a friend's unwavering support, a quiet afternoon away from the noise. The viral storm had brought unexpected allies, including an online group of checkers enthusiasts who saw Sarah as a symbol of the game's deeper meaning. They shared stories of resilience and strategy, reminding her that life, like checkers, was about more than just the moves you make, it was about how you respond to the board you're dealt. And then there was Elon Musk. His involvement, though brief at first, continued to fuel the fire. Musk's tweets and comments attracted attention from media outlets worldwide, each one dissected and debated. Some saw his engagement as a sign of solidarity, others as a reckless provocation. Musk announced he was looking into the incident more deeply, hinting at a potential role beyond mere commentary. This unexpected spotlight put pressure on Sarah but also opened doors. Invitations arrived for interviews, panels, and events where she could share her story and advocate for change. The narrative was shifting. From a local scandal to a conversation about viral culture, online harassment, and the human cost of digital fame. Sarah's rising conflict was not just about one moment at a checkers board, it was about how society grapples with empathy, judgment, and the power of technology to shape lives. Within this growing tension, Sarah experienced the hope climax cycle that defined her journey. One night, after a particularly brutal day of online attacks, she felt the crushing weight of despair. She questioned whether she could continue, whether the cost was too high. But then Marcus sent her a message, a reminder of the impact she was making and the people who believed in her. That flicker of hope gave Sarah the strength to face another day, another challenge, knowing the path ahead would not be easy but could lead to something meaningful. The next wave of conflict came unexpectedly. A rival faction within the town began spreading misinformation, twisting Sarah's words and motives to further divide the community. Their actions threatened to undo the progress she had made, turning support into suspicion and hope into fear. Sarah found herself battling not just online trolls but a deeper, more insidious force that sought to control the narrative. Through it all, Sarah's emotional landscape shifted. The initial shock gave way to determination. She realized that her story was bigger than herself. It was a lens through which to examine how we treat each other in an age when a single moment can define a person's entire existence. Her growing maturity and conflict resolution skills became evident as she navigated these challenges with grace and courage. She learned to speak her truth clearly, to stand firm in the face of adversity, and to lean on the community that rallied around her. The town of Millwood, too, began to change. Conversations that once avoided uncomfortable topics now took center stage. Community leaders organized forums on social media responsibility, empathy, and conflict resolution. Schools introduced programs that taught digital literacy and kindness online. The community center, scarred but resilient, reopened with renewed purpose, becoming a place not just for games but for healing and connection. Sarah's journey was no longer just personal, it was a catalyst for transformation. Through the rising conflict and moments of hope, she discovered the power of vulnerability and the strength of collective support. She saw that even in the darkest moments, there was a silver lining, a chance to rebuild and grow. The viral video that had threatened to define her life became the spark that ignited a movement for change. As Chapter 3 closes, Sarah stands at a crossroads. The path ahead is uncertain, filled with both peril and promise. But she is no longer alone. With Marcus, Jake, and a community behind her, she faces the challenges with renewed resolve. The rising conflict has tested her, but it has also prepared her for the unexpected journey that awaits, a journey that will take her far beyond Millwood and into a world where technology, humanity, and truth collide in ways she could never have imagined. The game is far from over, and Sarah is ready to play on. The viral incident that had consumed Sarah Miller's life suddenly pushed her into an unexpected journey, one that would take her beyond the familiar streets of Millwood and deep into a complex new world. It began with a simple invitation, an offer from a tech conference in San Francisco where Elon Musk was scheduled to speak. The invitation came from a surprising source, a well-known digital rights organization that had taken interest in Sarah's story as a case study in online harassment and media ethics. Though hesitant, Sarah saw this as an opportunity. She knew that sharing her experience on a larger stage could shift the narrative from victimhood to empowerment. It was the moment to take control of her story, to make new discoveries about herself and the world she lived in. Traveling to San Francisco was like stepping into a different universe. The city buzzed with energy, gleaming skyscrapers, bustling streets, and a sea of people all chasing their own dreams and ambitions. The tech conference was held in a sprawling convention center filled with cutting-edge innovations, futuristic displays, and a crowd hungry for the latest ideas. Sarah felt a mixture of awe and intimidation. She wasn't used to such grandeur. Millwood's quiet library was a far cry from this frenetic environment. Yet, she was determined to face the challenge. The conference sessions were intense, packed with discussions about artificial intelligence, social media ethics, digital privacy, and the growing influence of tech giants on everyday life. Sarah listened, absorbing new ideas that reframed her experience within a larger context. She began to understand how her viral moment was not an isolated event but part of a broader conversation about humanity's relationship with technology. The moment she had both anticipated and dreaded arrived when Elon Musk took the stage. The billionaire's presence filled the room with a mix of excitement and skepticism. Musk spoke passionately about innovation and the future, but he also acknowledged the dark side of technology, how social media could amplify harm and misinformation. His words struck a chord with Sarah, who saw in him a reflection of the very forces that had shaped her ordeal. After the keynote, Sarah was invited to join a panel discussion focused on digital responsibility and the human impact of viral content. Sharing her story in front of an audience was daunting, but she found her voice growing stronger with each word. She spoke about the emotional turmoil, the loss of privacy, and the unexpected ways a single moment could redefine a person's life. Her vulnerability resonated deeply with listeners. What surprised Sarah most was the reaction from the tech community. Far from the cold, detached figures she had imagined, many expressed genuine empathy and a desire to create safer online spaces. Conversations sparked collaborations, and new ideas emerged about how technology could be harnessed to protect rather than exploit. As the conference unfolded, Sarah encountered a group of researchers working on AI-driven solutions to monitor online harassment and misinformation. They showed her prototypes of software designed to detect toxic behavior before it spread, giving users tools to protect themselves. Sarah was intrigued and hopeful. She realized that while technology had played a role in her suffering, it could also be part of the solution. But the journey was not without challenges. The intense spotlight brought new pressures: interviews with national media, social media debates, and even online impersonators trying to capitalize on her story. The line between support and exploitation blurred, forcing Sarah to set firm boundaries to protect her mental health. One unexpected twist came when she received a direct message from Elon Musk himself. In a private conversation, Musk expressed a sincere interest in learning more about her experience and offered resources to help amplify her message. Their dialogue was candid and complex. Two people from very different worlds finding common ground in the shared struggle to navigate a rapidly changing digital landscape. Sarah's journey also brought new emotional challenges. Being away from Millwood and the people she loved intensified feelings of loneliness and vulnerability. But it also deepened her self-awareness. She confronted her fears and doubts head-on, discovering reserves of strength she hadn't known she possessed. The vivid scenes of San Francisco, the towering Golden Gate Bridge shrouded in fog, the bustling streets alive with street performers and food trucks, the quiet moments in coffee shops where she wrote notes and reflections, became part of her story. Each new experience was a lesson in adaptation and growth. The emotional stakes reached a new high when Sarah visited a local community center in the city, seeing firsthand how different communities dealt with similar issues of conflict, support, and resilience. She connected with women who had faced public backlash and learned about grassroots movements pushing for kindness and accountability online. These encounters broadened her perspective, showing her that her journey was part of a larger, global movement. As the conference neared its end, Sarah found herself at a crossroads. The unexpected journey had brought clarity but also new questions. How could she use this platform to make a lasting difference? What role would Elon Musk truly play beyond his tweets and public comments? And most importantly, how could she rebuild a life that honored her past while embracing an uncertain future? The climactic turn came when Sarah was invited to participate in a live-stream debate moderated by one of the nation's top journalists. The discussion would bring together voices from tech, journalism, and activism to explore the power and pitfalls of viral moments. Sarah knew this was her chance to challenge the sensationalism that had engulfed her story and to advocate for empathy and change. On the day of the debate, the studio was bright and buzzing with anticipation. Cameras, lights, and microphones surrounded Sarah, but she felt surprisingly calm. When the conversation turned to her case, she spoke with clarity and passion, weaving her personal journey into a broader narrative about responsibility and humanity. Her words reached millions online, sparking conversations and inspiring viewers. In that moment, Sarah felt a profound shift. The emotional climax of her story was not just about the viral tragedy but about reclaiming her voice and agency. She was no longer a passive subject but an active force for change. The hope that had carried her through dark times blossomed into something powerful. Yet, as always, the climax was followed by a new challenge. A backlash from skeptics and trolls quickly followed the debate, reminding Sarah that the path to resolution would not be straightforward. But armed with newfound strength and a growing network of allies, she was ready to face whatever came next. The climactic journey had transformed her, turning pain into purpose and fear into courage. As she prepared to return to Millwood, Sarah carried with her not just memories but a vision, a belief that even the most unexpected tragedies could lead to meaningful change. Her adventure was far from over, but the discoveries she had made in this vivid, challenging new world had equipped her to face the future with hope. The story of Sarah Miller was evolving into a beacon for anyone caught in the storm of viral fame, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the surprising ways technology could connect rather than divide. The next chapters would reveal how Sarah would build on this journey, confronting new realities and deepening her understanding of love, family, and sacrifice in the digital age. For now, the adventure was a vivid, living testament to the power of unexpected turns, vivid emotions, and the courage to keep moving forward. The emotional climax of Sarah Miller's journey erupted like a thunderclap during the national livestream debate, a moment that would be etched in her memory and the minds of millions who watched. The panel had been intense from the start, filled with sharp opinions and heated exchanges about the role of social media in modern society, the blurred lines between private lives and public spectacle, and the responsibilities tech giants bore in curbing online abuse. When the moderator turned to Sarah, she felt a weight settle over her, but also a fierce determination. She began by recounting the Checkers incident, the viral video that launched 1,000 headlines, but quickly shifted focus from the sensational to the personal. She spoke of the quiet moments that followed the chaos, the nights spent wrestling with anxiety and isolation, and the support that had kept her tethered to hope. Her voice wavered, but her message was clear: behind every viral clip is a real person with feelings, a life complicated and rich beyond the frame of a few seconds. The audience was silent, hanging on her every word. Then came the bombshell revelation, a truth Sarah had kept guarded until now. She disclosed the full extent of the harassment she had endured, including threats that forced her to change her daily routines and seek professional help. She talked openly about the stigma and shame, the unfair judgments cast by strangers who had never met her. The vulnerability struck a chord. The emotional climax was not just a confession, it was a rallying cry for empathy and accountability. The hope came quickly after. Viewers from across the country flooded social media with messages of support, calling for kindness and better protections for victims of online abuse. Advocacy groups pledged new initiatives inspired by Sarah's testimony. Even some skeptics softened, acknowledging the urgent need to rethink how viral moments were handled by media and platforms alike. Sarah felt a surge of relief and purpose, realizing that her story had the power to ignite real change. Yet, just as the tide seemed to turn, another climax struck: the backlash. Critics accused Sarah of seeking attention, questioned her motives, and attacked her credibility. Some conspiracy theories emerged, claiming the entire incident was staged to boost Musk's image or to promote a tech agenda. The attacks were vicious and relentless, threatening to undo the progress she had made. Sarah was forced to confront once again the harsh realities of public scrutiny. This second climax tested her resilience like never before. But instead of retreating, Sarah doubled down on her mission. She engaged with journalists and experts to debunk misinformation and share facts. She leaned on her circle, Marcus, Jake, her father David, and the growing community she had built online. The collective support helped her navigate the storm with renewed strength. Throughout this emotional roller coaster, Sarah's personal relationships evolved profoundly. Marcus became more than a friend, he was her anchor, challenging her to see beyond the chaos and focus on the bigger picture. Jake, struggling with his own fears and doubts, found new ways to support Sarah, rekindling their connection through honesty and patience. David's slow but steady outreach grew into genuine dialogue, providing a foundation for healing old wounds. These relationships were a lifeline amid the turmoil, reminding Sarah that love and forgiveness were as vital as courage and conviction. At the same time, Sarah's perspective on technology deepened. She saw it as a double-edged sword, capable of both destruction and redemption. The tools that had amplified her tragedy could also be harnessed to build community and foster understanding. Inspired by this realization, she began collaborating with the researchers she met at the San Francisco conference, working on projects aimed at making online spaces safer and more humane. The emotional climax marked a turning point, not an end but a powerful beginning. It was a moment when pain and hope intertwined, propelling Sarah forward on a path of advocacy and transformation. Her story resonated far beyond Millwood, becoming a symbol of resilience in a world where digital lives are often fragile and exposed. As the chapter closed, Sarah reflected on the lessons she had learned. Life was unpredictable and often unfair, but love, empathy, and courage could light the darkest moments. The viral tragedy had tested her, but it had also revealed her strength. The emotional climax was a testament to the human spirit's capacity to endure, to find hope amid despair, and to rise again. Sarah's journey was far from over, but now she faced the future with a heart both bruised and brave, ready to write the next chapter of her life on her own terms. After the emotional storm of the debate and the viral backlash, Sarah Miller finally returned to Millwood, but nothing felt quite the same. The town she had left was familiar, yet it now felt layered with complexity and unresolved tensions. The community center, once her sanctuary, remained a focal point of uneasy conversations and divided loyalties. Sarah knew that healing wasn't just a personal journey anymore, it was something the whole town needed. She threw herself into rebuilding, not only her own life but also the connections that had frayed. The community center's reopening event was a turning point. Organized by a coalition of local leaders, friends, and advocates inspired by Sarah's story, the event was designed to foster dialogue and unity. As she walked through the doors, memories of the checkers game flashed vividly, moments of joy, of conflict, and of unforeseen tragedy. But today was different. The air buzzed with cautious hope. Sarah addressed the crowd, sharing not just her pain but her vision for a community where empathy and respect could triumph over division. Her words were raw yet uplifting, reminding everyone that healing required courage and commitment from all. The event sparked meaningful conversations about online harassment, the impact of viral moments, and how communities could support one another in the digital age. Local schools began integrating lessons on empathy and digital citizenship, parents organized workshops on social media safety, and the community center launched support groups for victims of online abuse. Sarah became a central figure in these efforts, not as a celebrity but as a neighbor committed to change. Her relationships deepened as well. Marcus stood beside her, their friendship now forged in the fires of shared struggle and hope. Jake, after a period of distance and reflection, returned with renewed devotion, showing Sarah that love could survive even the harshest storms. Her father David, too, became more present, their tentative conversations growing into a fragile but genuine bond. These connections grounded Sarah, reminding her that personal growth and community healing were intertwined. Amid the local efforts, Sarah's influence began to ripple outward. The digital rights organization that had first invited her to San Francisco asked her to participate in a nationwide campaign advocating for stronger online protections and ethical media practices. She collaborated with lawmakers, tech developers, and activists to craft guidelines that balanced freedom of expression with accountability and compassion. This broader engagement was a new challenge, navigating complex systems and negotiating diverse interests. But Sarah was determined to make a difference. The experience deepened her understanding of sacrifice. Change required persistence, patience, and often uncomfortable compromises. She learned to listen as much as to speak, to value small victories as steps toward greater progress. Sarah's journey from viral tragedy to community advocate became a testament to resilience and purpose. Alongside the advocacy, Sarah continued to reflect on her personal lessons. She realized that love, family, and sacrifice were intertwined in unexpected ways. Forgiveness, she discovered, was not about forgetting but about releasing the hold of past pain to create space for healing. Her relationship with David was a living example of this truth, imperfect but meaningful, fragile yet hopeful. The game of checkers, once just a pastime, took on new symbolism. It represented life's challenges, strategies and setbacks, sacrifices and advances, moments of vulnerability and strength. Sarah found peace in this metaphor, embracing the complexities rather than seeking simple answers. In the quiet moments, whether alone in her room or walking Millwood streets, Sarah felt a growing sense of maturity. She was no longer defined by a single viral moment but by the ongoing journey of growth and connection. The road ahead remained uncertain, with new obstacles and opportunities, but she was ready. The resolution was not a neat ending but a profound understanding that life's struggles could lead to transformation. The final message Sarah wanted to share was clear: love and empathy could guide us through even the darkest storms. The viral tragedy was a painful chapter, but it sparked a new beginning, one where community, courage, and sacrifice forged a path forward. Sarah's story was a reminder that in a world overwhelmed by technology and rapid change, human connection remained the most powerful force of all. As the chapter closed, Sarah stood in the community center's renovated hall, surrounded by friends and neighbors, feeling both grounded and hopeful. The past had shaped her, but it no longer controlled her. The future awaited, full of promise, challenges, and the enduring power of love. Back in Millwood, the ripples of Sarah Miller's viral ordeal had settled into a steady current that slowly reshaped the community in unexpected ways. The Checkers tragedy, once a local shockwave, had evolved into a symbol of resilience, sparking conversations about privacy, kindness, and the power of technology to both wound and heal. Sarah's role had shifted from reluctant victim to community leader, a woman whose voice carried both weight and warmth. Yet beneath this emerging hope, new challenges brewed quietly, reminding Sarah that the path to healing was never linear. One morning, as Sarah sat at the kitchen table sipping coffee with Marcus, she received a message that disrupted her fragile peace. It was an email from a high-profile documentary filmmaker interested in turning her story into a feature-length film. The offer was both thrilling and terrifying. Sarah knew that revisiting the tragedy on such a public scale risked reopening old wounds, but it also presented an opportunity to deepen the conversation she had started. After days of careful thought and discussions with Marcus and her closest friends, Sarah agreed to participate, determined to shape the narrative with honesty and integrity. The production brought a whirlwind of activity to Millwood. Cameras rolled in familiar places: the library where Sarah had spent countless hours, the community center that had become a beacon of hope, and the small diner where she and Marcus often met to strategize about the future. The filmmaker's team was respectful, but Sarah found herself reliving moments she had tried to leave behind. The emotional toll was heavy, yet it also sparked moments of clarity. Talking openly on camera forced Sarah to confront lingering fears and doubts, while also recognizing the strength she had gained. As filming progressed, Sarah grew closer to the crew, particularly the director, Ava, whose passion for telling authentic stories resonated deeply. Ava encouraged Sarah to explore not just the tragedy but the broader themes of forgiveness, community, and the complex relationship between technology and humanity. Together, they envisioned a film that was more than a recounting of events, a story that would inspire empathy and spark change. Meanwhile, outside the production bubble, Millwood was adjusting to the renewed attention. Some residents welcomed the spotlight, seeing it as a chance to showcase their town's resilience and unity. Others were wary, concerned that old tensions might resurface or that the tragedy would be exploited for entertainment. Sarah understood these fears, and she worked tirelessly to engage with the community, hosting open forums and listening sessions to ensure everyone's voice was heard. One such meeting was particularly charged. A group of parents expressed frustration over social media's influence on their children, sharing stories of bullying and anxiety that mirrored Sarah's own experience. The dialogue was raw and honest, revealing layers of pain and hope that connected everyone present. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility but also a deep sense of purpose. The documentary's release was timed to coincide with a national campaign promoting digital literacy and online kindness. The film premiered in a packed theater, drawing viewers from across the region. Sarah sat nervously in the front row, watching her story unfold on screen: the Checkers game, the viral moment, the backlash, and her journey toward healing and advocacy. The audience's reactions were palpable, ranging from tears to applause. The film sparked widespread discussion, not only about Sarah's experience but about the broader societal issues it highlighted. Following the premiere, Sarah was invited to speak at universities, tech conferences, and community events. Each appearance was a chance to amplify her message, that behind every viral story is a human life deserving of respect and empathy. She emphasized the need for systemic change, better moderation tools, education on digital citizenship, and a cultural shift toward compassion online. As Sarah's influence grew, so did the complexities of her public life. The spotlight brought invitations from influential figures, including Elon Musk, who reached out again, this time proposing a partnership to develop technology aimed at combating online harassment. Their conversations were cautious but promising, blending Sarah's lived experience with Musk's vision for innovation. Despite the potential benefits, Sarah remained wary of being co-opted by corporate interests. She insisted on transparency and ethical oversight, determined to keep the focus on real people rather than profit. The collaboration faced hurdles, from technical challenges to public skepticism, but it also opened doors to meaningful progress. Sarah's journey became a case study in balancing activism with pragmatism, idealism with reality. Throughout this period, Sarah continued to nurture her personal relationships. Marcus was her constant ally, offering steady support amid the chaos. Jake re-entered her life with humility and patience, willing to rebuild trust slowly. And David, her father, attended therapy sessions with her, confronting the past to build a better future. These connections provided the emotional foundation Sarah needed to navigate the demanding roles she had taken on. The Checkers tragedy, once a source of pain and isolation, had become a catalyst for growth and connection. The community of Millwood, once fractured by fear and misunderstanding, was slowly knitting itself together through shared stories and collective action. Schools incorporated lessons inspired by Sarah's advocacy, teaching students not just about technology but about kindness and resilience. Local leaders prioritized mental health resources, recognizing the hidden costs of online life. Yet, as Sarah reflected on these changes, she knew the journey was ongoing. The digital landscape was ever evolving, with new challenges emerging alongside opportunities. The balance between innovation and humanity required constant vigilance and care. In quiet moments, Sarah returned to the checkers board, playing against herself or with Marcus, savoring the simple strategy and focus the game demanded. It reminded her that life, like checkers, involved calculated risks, sacrifices, and the courage to keep moving forward despite setbacks. The viral tragedy had tested her in ways she never imagined, but it had also revealed a deeper strength and purpose. As the chapter closed, Sarah stood at the intersection of past and future, ready to continue her work as an advocate, storyteller, and survivor. The Checkers tragedy was no longer just her story, it was a call to action, a beacon for anyone caught in the turbulent tides of the digital age. Through love, sacrifice, and unyielding hope, Sarah had transformed tragedy into a movement, proving that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit could find light. As spring turned to summer in Millwood, Sarah found herself navigating a new and unfamiliar landscape. The world of influence and activism. The viral tragedy that had once threatened to consume her had morphed into a platform, a microphone amplifying her voice beyond the boundaries of her small town. Yet, with this newfound visibility came new pressures and challenges, forcing Sarah to confront difficult questions about identity, purpose, and the cost of speaking out. The documentary's success had opened doors to national media interviews, panel discussions, and invitations to join advisory boards focused on digital ethics. Sarah was passionate about these opportunities but quickly realized they came with the risk of losing herself in the noise. She struggled to balance her public role with her private life, craving moments of normalcy even as the spotlight followed her relentlessly. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling day of interviews, Sarah returned to her childhood home to find a letter waiting for her from her father, David. The letter was raw and honest, a reflection of the complicated history between them and his own regrets. It acknowledged the mistakes he had made, the distance he had created, and expressed a sincere desire to rebuild their relationship. Reading the words, Sarah felt a mixture of pain and hope, a reminder that healing was never linear, but possible with openness and effort. Inspired, Sarah invited David to join her for therapy sessions, turning their fragile reconciliation into a deliberate process of understanding and forgiveness. Meanwhile, Sarah continued to collaborate with Elon Musk and his team on developing AI tools aimed at detecting and mitigating online harassment. The project was ambitious, combining cutting-edge technology with ethical oversight informed by Sarah's lived experience. Despite technical hurdles and public skepticism, the initiative gained momentum, attracting attention from policymakers and advocacy groups alike. Sarah saw this as a critical step toward systemic change, though she remained vigilant against the potential for technology to be misused or to perpetuate existing inequalities. At the same time, the personal cost of activism began to surface. Sarah faced fatigue, anxiety, and moments of doubt as she grappled with the enormity of the issues she sought to address. The constant scrutiny left her vulnerable, and online critics, some echoing old conspiracy theories, continued to challenge her motives and credibility. She leaned heavily on her support network, Marcus, Jake, and close friends, finding strength in their encouragement and grounding presence. Marcus, especially, became a source of steady companionship, his unwavering belief in Sarah's vision a balm against the harshness of public opinion. Their friendship deepened into something more, offering Sarah a glimpse of love that was patient, supportive, and unassuming. The checkers game they played during quiet evenings became a metaphor for their relationship, strategic, thoughtful, and full of small victories. In Millwood, the impact of Sarah's advocacy was tangible but evolving. The community center thrived as a hub for digital literacy workshops and mental health support groups. Local schools embraced new curricula focused on empathy, critical thinking, and resilience in the digital age. Sarah's story inspired others to share their experiences, fostering a culture of openness and mutual care. Yet, challenges remained. Some residents resisted change, clinging to skepticism or fear of the unknown. Sarah recognized that transforming culture was a slow, iterative process requiring patience and perseverance. She committed herself to listening as much as leading, valuing dialogue over division. One of the most profound moments during this period came during a town hall meeting addressing online safety for youth. Parents, teachers, and students gathered to discuss their concerns and hopes. A teenage girl, shy but determined, shared her story of being bullied online and how Sarah's advocacy had given her courage to speak out. The room filled with applause, and Sarah felt a surge of purpose and connection. This moment crystallized her belief that change was possible, not through technology alone, but through human empathy and collective action. As the year progressed, Sarah balanced public engagements with private reflection. She maintained a journal, documenting her experiences, fears, and hopes. These writings became a source of clarity and strength, helping her navigate the complexities of her evolving role. She revisited the checkers board often, finding solace in its quiet rhythms and simple challenges. The game reminded her that life required patience, strategy, and sometimes sacrifice, but also that progress was possible with perseverance. Meanwhile, Sarah's collaboration with Elon Musk continued to attract media attention. Some praised the initiative as a groundbreaking step toward safer online spaces, while others criticized it as a PR stunt or raised concerns about privacy and surveillance. Sarah addressed these critiques openly, emphasizing the importance of transparency, ethical standards, and ongoing dialogue with affected communities. She insisted that technology alone could not solve the problems of online harassment but could be a tool within a broader cultural shift toward kindness and respect. Behind the scenes, Sarah and Elon's relationship was professional but respectful. They debated ideas and approaches, learning from each other's perspectives. Sarah appreciated Elon's visionary thinking but reminded him repeatedly of the human element at the heart of the issue. Their exchanges were a reminder that progress required collaboration across different worlds, technology, advocacy, and lived experience. As summer gave way to fall, Sarah faced a new personal challenge. Jake, who had been supportive yet cautious throughout their renewed relationship, revealed he had accepted a job opportunity in another state. The news hit Sarah hard, forcing her to confront the tension between love and ambition, connection and independence. Their conversations were honest and sometimes painful, reflecting their desire to support each other while navigating uncertain futures. Sarah grappled with the possibility of loss once again, but also with the opportunity for growth and self-discovery. Ultimately, they agreed to maintain their relationship long distance for the time being, promising to cherish what they had while embracing new possibilities. This decision, though difficult, marked another step in Sarah's maturation. A recognition that love could be flexible and resilient, not bound by traditional expectations but rooted in trust and communication. As the year drew to a close, Sarah looked back on the journey from viral tragedy to advocacy with a mixture of pride and humility. She had faced unimaginable challenges, endured harsh public scrutiny, and wrestled with complex personal dynamics. Yet through it all, she had grown stronger, more compassionate, and more determined. The Checkers tragedy, once a source of pain and isolation, had become a catalyst for transformation, not just for Sarah, but for an entire community and beyond. Sarah's story was a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of human connection, and the ongoing quest for justice and kindness in a digital world. As she prepared for the next chapter, Sarah carried with her the lessons of sacrifice, forgiveness, and hope. She knew the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face it with courage and heart. The viral moment that had upended her life had become a beacon, illuminating the path forward for anyone willing to stand up, speak out, and believe in the possibility of change. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The crisp chill of early autumn wrapped around Millwood as Sarah prepared for what she knew would be one of the most significant moments since the viral storm, the National Summit on Online Harassment and Digital Responsibility. The event was to be held in Washington, D.C., gathering activists, lawmakers, tech executives, and survivors like Sarah herself. It was a chance to push the conversation beyond headlines and tweets into policy and meaningful reform. The stakes felt enormous. Traveling from her quiet town to the bustling capital was a jarring transition. Sarah found herself overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the summit, the packed schedules, the constant buzz of cameras and microphones. Yet amid the chaos, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Here, her story was part of a larger movement, a collective push for change that transcended her own experience. On the first day, Sarah joined a panel discussion alongside advocates and technologists, including Elon Musk, who had come to support the AI initiative they'd been developing together. The panel explored the intersection of technology, ethics, and human rights, with Sarah speaking passionately about the need for solutions rooted in empathy, not just algorithms. The discussion was intense and sometimes contentious, with divergent views on freedom of speech, censorship, and privacy. Sarah found herself navigating complex debates, balancing idealism with pragmatism. The summit also brought moments of unexpected connection. In a breakout session, Sarah met Maya, a young activist whose campaign against online bullying in schools had gained national attention. Their conversation sparked ideas about how to better integrate grassroots efforts with technological solutions. Sarah was inspired by Maya's energy and clarity, reminding her that the fight against harassment required voices from every generation. Outside the formal events, Sarah faced the challenge of maintaining her composure amid media attention. Interviews, photo ops, and social media posts kept her in the spotlight, magnifying both praise and criticism. Some commentators questioned her role, accusing her of capitalizing on personal trauma. Others lauded her courage and honesty. Sarah learned to develop a thicker skin, focusing on the larger mission rather than the noise. Amid the professional whirlwind, Sarah's personal life felt distant and fragile. Long-distance conversations with Jake grew bittersweet as their time zones and schedules made connection difficult. Marcus remained a steady presence, sending texts of encouragement and small gifts that reminded her of home. Sarah missed the simplicity of Millwood's quiet streets, the comfort of familiar faces. She realized how much she needed that grounding as she prepared for her keynote address on the final day. The night before her speech, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From a viral video capturing a private moment gone wrong to becoming a voice for millions affected by online cruelty. The Checkers tragedy had been a painful catalyst, but it had also revealed the strength within herself and others. Sarah knew her words mattered not just for herself, but for those still struggling in silence. When the day arrived, Sarah stood at the podium before a packed auditorium. Cameras streamed live across platforms, and thousands tuned in virtually. Her speech was a blend of personal narrative and urgent calls to action. She spoke of the human cost behind the screens, the complexity of digital lives, and the need for collective responsibility. She challenged tech companies to prioritize user well-being, lawmakers to enact thoughtful protections, and individuals to choose empathy over anger. The response was overwhelming. Standing ovations, messages of support flooding social media, and follow-up invitations from influential figures reinforced that Sarah's voice had become a catalyst for change. Yet, even in that moment of triumph, Sarah felt the weight of what remained undone. After the summit, Sarah returned to Millwood carrying both the momentum of success and the sobering reality of ongoing battles. The town welcomed her with open arms, celebrating not just the national recognition but the woman they had come to know and support. At the community center, Sarah led workshops and mentoring sessions, sharing her experiences with young people eager to make their own mark on the world. These interactions grounded her in the everyday impact of her work. In the months that followed, Sarah continued to balance advocacy with self-care. She made time for walks through the woods near Millwood, quiet evenings with Marcus and friends, and moments alone with her journal. She practiced mindfulness and therapy, recognizing that healing was an ongoing process, not a destination. One afternoon, Sarah received a call from a prominent senator who wanted to collaborate on drafting new legislation focused on online safety and digital accountability. The senator praised Sarah's insights and experience, viewing her as a vital bridge between the public and policymakers. Sarah embraced the opportunity but remained mindful of the compromises and complexities inherent in political processes. Negotiating legislative change was a long and often frustrating path, requiring patience and persistence. Throughout these efforts, Sarah's relationship with Elon Musk evolved into a cautious but productive partnership. They continued to refine the AI tools aimed at identifying harmful content, balancing privacy concerns with the need for effective intervention. Elon's team incorporated feedback from advocacy groups and users, with Sarah ensuring that human dignity remained central. The collaboration was a reminder that progress required diverse expertise and mutual respect. Meanwhile, Sarah's personal circle grew stronger. Marcus and Jake found ways to coexist in her life, each offering different forms of support and affection. Sarah cherished the balance this brought: companionship, friendship, and the freedom to explore her own path. Her relationship with David, too, deepened, with regular conversations that brought them closer than ever before. One evening, as Sarah and David sat by the fireplace in her childhood home, he shared a story from his youth, one of mistakes and missed chances but also of hope and redemption. The moment was tender and profound, underscoring the power of vulnerability and forgiveness. Sarah understood that family was not about perfection but about commitment and growth. As the year came full circle, Sarah looked out over the town of Millwood from the steps of the community center. The place that had once felt fractured now pulsed with life and connection. The viral tragedy that had cast a long shadow had also ignited a movement of empathy, resilience, and hope. Sarah felt a deep gratitude for the people who had stood by her, the lessons she had learned, and the future she was helping to build. She knew the road ahead would bring new challenges, but she was ready, armed with experience, love, and the unshakable belief that even the smallest act of kindness could change the world. Winter settled over Millwood with a quiet hush, blanketing the town in snow and offering a rare moment of stillness after months of relentless activity. For Sarah, this seasonal pause was both a blessing and a challenge. The year's events had left her emotionally drained but determined to press forward with her mission. She understood that the battle against online harassment was far from over and that the digital landscape would only grow more complex. Yet, in this moment, she also recognized the need for rest, reflection, and careful planning. The community center, which had become a hub for so many initiatives, was preparing for its annual winter gala. This event was more than a fundraiser, it was a celebration of resilience, hope, and the collective spirit that had transformed Millwood. Sarah was asked to deliver a keynote speech, an honor she accepted with a mix of pride and humility. As she rehearsed her words, she thought about the people who had shaped her journey, the friends who had stood by her, the families who had found new strength in shared stories, and the countless individuals working behind the scenes to build a kinder online world. The gala night arrived, and the community center glowed warmly against the snowy backdrop. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and gratitude. Sarah's speech touched on themes of connection, responsibility, and the power of empathy to overcome even the darkest moments. She spoke candidly about her own struggles, the setbacks, and the moments of doubt that had tested her resolve. Her words resonated deeply, drawing tears, laughter, and a renewed commitment from the audience. In the weeks following the gala, Sarah focused on expanding educational programs within Millwood schools. She partnered with teachers and counselors to develop curricula that addressed digital citizenship, emotional intelligence, and conflict resolution. These programs aimed not only to reduce bullying but to empower students to be thoughtful, compassionate participants in their communities, both online and offline. Sarah's efforts attracted attention from neighboring towns, sparking interest in replicating the model. She was invited to consult on similar projects, broadening the reach of Millwood's pioneering work. Yet, as her advocacy grew, so did the complexity of the challenges she faced. New social media platforms emerged, each with unique dynamics and risks. Harassment took new forms, deepfakes, coordinated attacks, anonymous threats, making the task of creating safe spaces more urgent and complicated. Sarah worked closely with technologists and legal experts to anticipate these threats and craft adaptive strategies. The collaboration with Elon Musk's team intensified, with beta testing of advanced AI moderation tools underway. The technology showed promise but also raised ethical questions about surveillance, bias, and free speech. Sarah advocated for transparent algorithms, user control, and community involvement in shaping digital environments. Her stance earned respect and sparked lively debates across media and policy circles. On a personal front, Sarah continued to navigate the delicate balance between public life and private relationships. Marcus remained a steady anchor, his quiet support offering comfort amid the storms. Jake's visits became more frequent, and they shared moments of tenderness and honesty, recognizing that their paths were no longer simple or predictable. Sarah cherished these connections but also valued her independence and the space to grow on her own terms. Therapy and mindfulness practices remained essential, helping her process ongoing stress and maintain emotional health. One particularly difficult challenge arose when a coordinated smear campaign targeted Sarah online, spreading misinformation and reigniting painful memories from the Checkers tragedy. The attacks were vicious and relentless, designed to undermine her credibility and silence her voice. Sarah felt the familiar sting of betrayal and isolation but refused to retreat. Instead, she mobilized her supporters, sharing the truth openly and rallying others to stand against harassment. The incident reinforced her commitment to systemic change and the importance of community resilience. In response, Sarah helped launch a coalition of activists, technologists, and legal advocates dedicated to combating online abuse. The group worked on policy proposals, public education campaigns, and support networks for victims. Their collaborative efforts brought renewed energy and focus to the cause, illustrating the power of collective action. As spring approached once more, Sarah found herself reflecting on the transformative journey she and Millwood had undergone. The Checkers tragedy that had once seemed like an unbearable weight had become a catalyst for growth, connection, and hope. The community was stronger, more compassionate, and better equipped to face the challenges of the digital age. Sarah felt a deep sense of gratitude and resolve. She understood that while the road ahead would be difficult, it was also filled with possibility. Through love, sacrifice, and unyielding hope, she had helped turn tragedy into a movement, one that would continue to inspire and protect countless others. With the seasons change, Sarah embraced new opportunities to share her story and vision. She spoke at international conferences, collaborated on research initiatives, and mentored young advocates eager to make a difference. Each engagement reinforced her belief in the power of empathy and the importance of human connection in a world increasingly shaped by technology. As she looked toward the future, Sarah remained grounded in the lessons of her past. The checkers board still sat in her living room, a quiet reminder that life required strategy, patience, and courage. No matter the challenges or setbacks, the game, and her journey, were about moving forward, one thoughtful step at a time. Spring had arrived in Millwood, bringing with it a burst of energy and renewal that seemed to mirror Sarah's own evolving journey. The snow melted away, revealing fresh blooms and vibrant colors that made the town feel alive again. For Sarah, this season marked a turning point, an opportunity to deepen her impact while confronting new challenges that tested her resolve and vision. The momentum from the coalition she helped found was gaining traction. Together with technologists, lawmakers, educators, and survivors, they began to draft a comprehensive framework for digital safety that emphasized prevention, accountability, and healing. Sarah's role was pivotal. She bridged lived experience with policy, grounding abstract debates in human stories. The coalition worked tirelessly, organizing town halls, conducting research, and lobbying for legislation that would hold platforms accountable while protecting users' rights. As discussions unfolded, Sarah often found herself in intense conversations about the limits of free speech, the risks of censorship, and the role of technology companies in shaping public discourse. These debates were complex and fraught, reflecting the high stakes of balancing innovation with responsibility. Despite the hurdles, Sarah's optimism never waned. She believed in the possibility of creating digital spaces where people could engage safely and authentically. She shared this vision at conferences and in media appearances, inspiring others to join the cause. Amid her public work, Sarah remained deeply connected to Millwood. The community center thrived as a beacon of hope and resilience, offering workshops, counseling, and social events that fostered belonging. Sarah often found herself mentoring young people who reminded her of her own struggles and hopes. Their stories reinforced her commitment to making change tangible at the grassroots level. The checkers board remained a fixture in her home, a symbol of strategy and patience as she navigated the complexities of activism and personal growth. Sarah's relationships continued to evolve. Marcus and Jake each held important places in her life, their support a testament to the power of love and friendship in times of uncertainty. Sarah valued these connections deeply, recognizing that personal strength often came from shared vulnerability. One day, Sarah received an unexpected invitation to collaborate on a documentary series exploring the impact of technology on human relationships. The producers wanted her to share her story and insights, highlighting the intersection of personal tragedy and public advocacy. After careful consideration, Sarah agreed, seeing it as a chance to reach wider audiences and deepen the conversation about digital responsibility. Filming was intense and emotional. Sarah revisited difficult moments from her past, from the viral checkers game to the smear campaigns that had threatened to silence her. Yet, through this process, she found healing and clarity, understanding that her story was part of a larger narrative about resilience and transformation. The documentary's release sparked renewed interest and dialogue. Viewers across the country connected with Sarah's journey, many sharing their own experiences of online harassment and hope. The series became a tool for education and advocacy, amplifying the coalition's work and sparking new partnerships. As Sarah engaged with this growing network, she encountered new challenges, including pushback from powerful interests resistant to change. Some tech executives dismissed the coalition's efforts as idealistic or intrusive, while others raised concerns about the feasibility of enforcement. Sarah responded with determination and grace, emphasizing the human cost of inaction and the moral imperative to protect vulnerable users. The battles were hard-fought and sometimes exhausting, but Sarah's resolve was unwavering. She found strength in her community, in the stories of survivors, and in the quiet moments of reflection that allowed her to recharge. One spring evening, Sarah sat on the porch with David, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Their relationship had grown steadily, built on honesty, forgiveness, and shared commitment to growth. David spoke of his pride in Sarah's work and his hope for the future. Sarah felt a deep sense of peace and connection, knowing that family, however imperfect, was a source of grounding and love. As the months passed, Sarah continued to push boundaries, advocating for innovative approaches to digital safety, including restorative justice programs and user-led content moderation. She championed the idea that technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. Her vision inspired others to think beyond traditional frameworks and imagine new possibilities for connection and healing. The Checkers tragedy that had once threatened to define Sarah's life now stood as a testament to the power of resilience, empathy, and collective action. Through her journey, she had transformed pain into purpose, isolation into community, and fear into hope. As spring blossomed fully, Sarah looked forward with a renewed sense of courage and clarity. The road ahead was still uncertain, but she was ready to meet it head-on, armed with experience, love, and the unwavering belief that change was possible, one move at a time. Summer arrived with a blazing heat that settled over Millwood, casting golden light on familiar streets and buzzing with the promise of new beginnings. For Sarah, the season carried a mixture of anticipation and challenge. The momentum she had built over the past months was accelerating, bringing both opportunities and pressures that tested her resilience in unexpected ways. The coalition's work was gaining national attention, with major media outlets covering their efforts to transform online culture. Sarah found herself invited to speak at universities, tech conferences, and even Capitol Hill hearings. Each platform was a chance to advocate for comprehensive digital reforms but also a reminder of the immense responsibility on her shoulders. Despite the growing public profile, Sarah remained deeply committed to the grassroots work in Millwood. The community center expanded its programs, hosting summer camps focused on digital literacy, empathy training, and creative expression. Sarah often volunteered, leading workshops that combined storytelling with practical skills to help young people navigate the complexities of social media. These moments grounded her, reminding her of the real lives behind the statistics and headlines. Meanwhile, the collaboration with Elon Musk's team reached a critical phase. The AI moderation tools were undergoing rigorous testing, integrating feedback from diverse user groups to ensure fairness and transparency. Sarah worked closely with engineers, advocating for safeguards against bias and mechanisms to protect user privacy. The partnership was complex, filled with moments of frustration and breakthrough. Elon's direct involvement brought high visibility but also scrutiny, as critics questioned the influence of a billionaire tech mogul on efforts to regulate digital spaces. Sarah navigated this terrain carefully, emphasizing that the work was about collective responsibility and the voices of those affected. On a personal level, Sarah's relationships continued to evolve in ways both joyful and difficult. Marcus planned to move to a nearby city for a new job opportunity, a bittersweet development that underscored the changing seasons of friendship and support. Jake remained a constant, their bond deepening as they shared hopes and fears about the future. Sarah appreciated the delicate balance of closeness and independence they maintained, allowing space for growth while offering companionship. One summer afternoon, Sarah received a call from a national nonprofit focused on mental health and digital well-being. They invited her to join their board, recognizing her unique blend of experience and advocacy. Sarah accepted, eager to influence broader conversations about the intersection of technology and emotional health. The role introduced new challenges, including navigating organizational politics and balancing time commitments, but Sarah embraced it as another way to expand her impact. As summer unfolded, Sarah also faced renewed backlash from detractors who questioned her motives and methods. Social media campaigns aimed to discredit her work, spreading misinformation and stirring division. The attacks were draining, reminding Sarah of the darker side of public life. Yet she refused to be silenced. Instead, she leaned on her support network, practiced self-care, and doubled down on transparency and truth. The community rallied around her, amplifying messages of solidarity and resilience. A pivotal moment came when Sarah was invited to participate in a national televised debate on digital policy. The event was high stakes, with sharp exchanges between advocates, policymakers, and tech representatives. Sarah held her ground, articulating the human impact behind policy decisions and the need for collaborative solutions. The debate sparked widespread discussion, elevating the issues Sarah cared deeply about to the forefront of public discourse. That summer, Sarah also found time for quiet reflection. She revisited the old checkers board in her living room, tracing the worn squares with her fingers. The game had once been a symbol of loss and pain, but now it represented strategy, resilience, and the possibility of change. She thought about the moves she had made, some risky, some cautious, and the lessons learned along the way. As summer's warmth began to wane, Sarah felt a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. The path ahead would require continued courage, collaboration, and compassion. She was ready to face whatever challenges came next, confident in the strength she had found within herself and her community. The checkers tragedy that had once threatened to define her was now a catalyst for transformation, one move at a time. The fall breeze carried a crispness that seemed to sharpen the edges of everything in Millwood, signaling a season of change and reflection. Sarah found herself at a crossroads, balancing the ever-growing demands of her advocacy work with the quiet, intimate moments that fueled her spirit. The coalition she helped lead was entering a critical phase. The digital safety bill they had championed was finally up for a vote in Congress. The process was grueling, filled with late nights, endless meetings, and fierce lobbying from powerful interests. Sarah traveled frequently between Millwood and Washington, D.C., her schedule a whirlwind of committee hearings, media interviews, and strategic planning sessions. The stakes felt monumental. This legislation could reshape the online landscape for years to come. Yet, the journey was far from straightforward. Opposition came from unexpected quarters, including libertarian groups concerned about free speech, tech lobbyists wary of regulation, and political factions eager to stall progress for partisan gain. Sarah found herself navigating a labyrinth of competing priorities and deep-seated mistrust. In these moments, her resolve was tested like never before. Drawing strength from her community back home, Sarah leaned into the stories of those affected by online harassment, the survivors, the families, the young people struggling to find their voice. She used their experiences to humanize the debate, reminding lawmakers that behind every data point was a person whose life could be irrevocably altered. At the same time, Sarah deepened her partnership with Elon Musk's team. The AI moderation tools were being refined with real-world data, their capabilities improving but the ethical complexities growing more pronounced. The project faced scrutiny from privacy advocates and civil liberties groups, forcing the team to rethink design choices and transparency measures. Sarah advocated fiercely for user control and community input, determined to ensure the technology served people rather than surveillance. Amid the professional intensity, Sarah's personal life provided both sanctuary and challenge. Marcus's move to the nearby city had created a new rhythm in their friendship, less frequent in-person meetings but a deepening of emotional support through calls and texts. Jake's presence remained a source of comfort and unpredictability, their relationship marked by shared dreams and occasional tensions as they negotiated their individual paths. Sarah treasured the balance these connections offered, recognizing that growth often required flexibility and grace. One chilly evening in October, Sarah received a surprising message from David. They had maintained sporadic contact over the months, but this note was different, warm, reflective, and hopeful. He invited her to a small gathering in Millwood, a reunion of old friends and family. Sarah hesitated but decided to attend, sensing an opportunity for closure and connection. The reunion was intimate, filled with laughter, tears, and stories that wove together past and present. Sarah and David spoke at length, sharing their journeys and the ways they had changed. The conversation was honest and healing, underscoring the complexities of family and the power of forgiveness. This moment reminded Sarah that while her public work was vital, her personal roots were equally important. As the digital safety bill approached its final vote, tensions in Washington reached a fever pitch. Lobbyists mounted last-minute campaigns, public opinion swayed, and the media amplified every twist and turn. Sarah found herself at the center of a storm, her every word scrutinized, her motives questioned. The pressure was immense, but she remained steadfast. On the day of the vote, Sarah watched from the gallery as lawmakers debated passionately. When the bill finally passed by a narrow margin, relief and triumph washed over her. It was not a perfect victory, compromises had been made, and challenges lay ahead, but it was a critical step forward. In the aftermath, Sarah took time to reflect. She understood that legislation was only part of the solution, cultural change required ongoing effort and commitment. Back in Millwood, the community celebrated with a gathering at the center, honoring the collective work that had made progress possible. The checkers board, once a symbol of personal tragedy, now stood prominently in the center as a reminder of resilience and strategy. As fall deepened, Sarah embraced the season's lessons, that progress came in fits and starts, that hope required persistence, and that connection, whether to family, friends, or community, was the foundation of lasting change. The road ahead remained uncertain, but Sarah faced it with courage, love, and the unwavering belief that every move mattered. Winter was approaching again, casting long shadows over Millwood as the days grew shorter and colder. Sarah found herself reflecting on the year's turbulent events, the victories and setbacks, the personal growth, and the collective struggles. The digital safety bill's passage had marked a turning point, but the work of implementation was just beginning. As the coalition transitioned from advocacy to oversight, Sarah's role shifted to ensuring that promises turned into action. The challenges of enforcement became apparent quickly. Tech companies grappled with new compliance requirements, some resisting the changes while others embraced innovation. The AI moderation tools developed in partnership with Elon Musk's team faced scrutiny over accuracy, fairness, and unintended consequences. Sarah worked with data scientists and ethicists to refine the systems, advocating for transparency and community governance. These efforts were met with both praise and criticism, illustrating the complex balance between security and freedom in digital spaces. Meanwhile, the social and emotional dimensions of the checkers tragedy continued to resonate deeply. Sarah hosted support groups and storytelling circles at the community center, creating safe spaces for survivors and families to share their experiences and heal together. These gatherings revealed the ongoing need for compassion and understanding in a world often driven by technology and speed. Sarah's advocacy expanded to include mental health initiatives, emphasizing the importance of emotional well-being alongside digital safety. Her partnership with local schools deepened, incorporating trauma-informed practices and peer support networks. On the personal front, Sarah navigated shifting dynamics with Marcus and Jake. Marcus's new job had pulled him further away physically, but their friendship remained strong, sustained by frequent calls and occasional visits. Jake and Sarah's relationship faced new challenges as they both confronted career pressures and differing visions for the future. They learned to communicate more openly, negotiating boundaries and commitments with growing maturity. One cold evening, Sarah received an unexpected call from Elon Musk himself. He wanted to discuss the next phase of their collaboration, exploring how emerging technologies like neural interfaces and virtual reality could be harnessed to promote empathy and connection online. The conversation was inspiring and daunting, filled with potential and uncertainty. Sarah recognized that the digital frontier was evolving rapidly, and the stakes were higher than ever. She agreed to lead a working group focused on ethical innovation, bringing together experts from diverse fields to chart a responsible path forward. As winter deepened, Sarah also found solace in quieter moments. She spent time with David and other family members, rebuilding bonds and appreciating the complexities of forgiveness and love. The checkers board, now a cherished symbol, sat near the fireplace, reminding her that every move carried meaning. Sarah practiced mindfulness and self-care, understanding that sustaining her work required balance and resilience. The community center hosted its annual winter gala once more, a celebration of hope and perseverance. Sarah's keynote speech reflected on the journey so far. The power of collective action, the necessity of compassion, and the promise of a future shaped by empathy and courage. The event rekindled energy and commitment among attendees, fueling plans for the coming year. As the year closed, Sarah prepared to step into new roles, mentoring emerging leaders, advising policymakers, and continuing to challenge the status quo. She understood that the Checkers tragedy had set in motion a movement that transcended any one person, fueled by shared humanity and relentless hope. Though the path ahead was uncertain and fraught with complexity, Sarah faced it with determination and grace, knowing that every move mattered in the ongoing game of life. As the new year unfolded, Sarah found herself reflecting on how far she and the movement had come since that fateful Checkers game that had thrust her into the national spotlight. The work was evolving, and so was she. The coalition now faced the complex realities of enforcement and cultural change, shifting from broad advocacy to tangible results on the ground. Implementing the digital safety bill required collaboration with tech companies, regulators, and community leaders, a complicated dance of compromise and conviction. Sarah's partnership with Elon Musk and his team had deepened, evolving beyond AI moderation to include exploring new technologies aimed at fostering healthier online environments. Elon's vision for integrating empathy-driven algorithms and user empowerment tools inspired Sarah, though she remained cautious of potential unintended consequences. Balancing innovation with ethics became her daily challenge. In Millwood, the community center flourished as a hub for healing and education. Sarah spearheaded initiatives combining digital literacy with emotional resilience, teaching young people to navigate the internet's pitfalls while nurturing self-worth and empathy. The center's programs expanded to include restorative justice circles, art therapy, and peer mentoring, weaving a holistic approach to well-being. Sarah's relationships, too, reflected this season of growth and complexity. Marcus had settled into his new job, but the distance between them underscored the evolving nature of their friendship. They remained close, bound by shared history and mutual respect, even as their paths diverged. Jake and Sarah confronted their own uncertainties, grappling with career pressures and questions about the future. Open communication and patience became their tools for navigating change. Unexpectedly, Sarah received an invitation to a global summit on digital ethics held in San Francisco. The event promised to gather leading minds across technology, policy, and human rights to chart the future of online spaces. Though hesitant about the spotlight, Sarah accepted, recognizing the opportunity to amplify the voices of those most affected by digital harm. At the summit, Sarah was both inspired and challenged. She encountered diverse perspectives, from visionary technologists to grassroots activists. The discussions were rich and sometimes contentious, revealing the complexities of regulating a rapidly evolving digital landscape. Sarah spoke passionately about the human cost of neglect and the necessity of centering empathy in technology design. Her story resonated widely, sparking new partnerships and collaborations. Yet, the summit also exposed deep divides, between commercial interests and public good, between innovation and regulation, and between global standards and local realities. Sarah returned to Millwood energized but aware of the long road ahead. Back home, the coalition faced fresh challenges as efforts to scale community programs met funding and logistical barriers. Sarah focused on building bridges, securing grants, and nurturing volunteer networks. She recognized that sustainable change required patience, adaptability, and shared commitment. Amid these efforts, Sarah also dedicated time to her personal well-being. She embraced mindfulness practices, spent quiet evenings with David and family, and allowed herself moments of rest and joy. The Checkers board in her living room served as a gentle reminder of the journey, each move a lesson, each setback an opportunity to learn. As the year progressed, Sarah reflected on the paradox of progress. The thrill of victories tempered by ongoing struggles. She understood that change was neither linear nor easy, but that hope persisted in every act of courage and kindness. With renewed determination, Sarah prepared for the next chapters, both in her work and her life, knowing that the game was far from over and that every move mattered deeply. Spring's gentle arrival brought with it a sense of renewal and quiet optimism in Millwood, but beneath the blossoming trees and warmer days, Sarah was grappling with new tensions. The coalition's work, once fueled by broad enthusiasm and urgency, now faced internal challenges that threatened its cohesion. Diverse perspectives and priorities, while a strength, sometimes led to disagreements about strategy and focus. Sarah found herself in the difficult role of mediator, striving to hold the group together while staying true to their shared mission. The digital safety bill, though passed, was revealing cracks in implementation. Enforcement inconsistencies and loopholes allowed some platforms to evade accountability, frustrating advocates and survivors alike. Sarah worked with legal experts and policy makers to propose amendments and refine oversight mechanisms, advocating for transparency and stronger protections. Meanwhile, the partnership with Elon Musk's team entered a new phase, focusing on integrating AI moderation tools into emerging social media platforms and virtual reality spaces. The technology showed promise but also raised fresh ethical questions about surveillance, consent, and data privacy. Sarah insisted on robust community involvement in design and governance, pushing back against any moves that might prioritize profit or control over user well-being. Personal life brought both solace and challenge. Jake and Sarah's relationship deepened, marked by honest conversations about boundaries, dreams, and the pressures they faced. Marcus remained a steady friend, his career flourishing but his connection to Sarah a source of warmth and grounding. Family ties, rekindled with David and others, continued to provide emotional nourishment and reminders of the complexity of forgiveness and love. A pivotal moment came when a new wave of viral online harassment targeted a prominent social justice advocate, echoing patterns from Sarah's own experience years earlier. The incident reignited public debate about the limits of digital speech, platform responsibility, and the emotional toll on targets. Sarah mobilized quickly, offering support to the advocate and calling for renewed vigilance and action. This crisis underscored the ongoing nature of the battle for safer digital spaces and strengthened the coalition's resolve. In Millwood, the community center expanded its offerings to include trauma-informed digital literacy programs and peer support groups, creating a refuge and resource hub. Sarah's leadership was both visible and quietly steady, balancing public advocacy with hands-on work. The checkers board, now worn and well-loved, sat near the center's entrance, a symbol of strategy, patience, and resilience. As spring gave way to summer, Sarah reflected on the paradoxes inherent in her journey, the tension between progress and setbacks, hope and despair, connection and isolation. She understood that the work demanded endurance and compassion, both for others and herself. The game was far from over, but with every move, she was learning to navigate its complexities with grace and determination. The summer sun blazed fiercely over Millwood, casting sharp shadows that mirrored the growing intensity of the battles Sarah faced. The coalition's efforts had matured into a nationwide movement, drawing attention from media, policymakers, and tech giants alike. Yet, with greater visibility came heightened scrutiny and resistance. Sarah found herself navigating a treacherous landscape where allies sometimes became critics, and opponents lurked behind the guise of concern or principle. The digital safety bill's enforcement was inconsistent, and loopholes allowed harmful content to persist. Tech companies pushed back against regulations they deemed burdensome, invoking free speech arguments that complicated the coalition's mission. Amid this tension, the partnership with Elon Musk took an unexpected turn. Elon's public persona, at times provocative and unpredictable, began to cast a shadow over the coalition's work. His tweet sparked controversies that distracted from the movement's goals, leading some supporters to question the collaboration. Sarah wrestled with the dilemma, how to maintain a productive partnership without compromising the integrity and focus of the cause. In response, she advocated for clear boundaries and greater transparency, emphasizing that the work belonged to the community, not any individual. Meanwhile, the emotional toll of the ongoing struggle became evident. Sarah's sleep was restless, her moments of quiet increasingly rare. The demands of leadership weighed heavily, and the relentless pace left little room for self-care. Jake remained a steady presence, offering support and grounding, but even their relationship faced strains under the pressure. Marcus's friendship was a balm, his pragmatic wisdom and humor providing relief during dark moments. The community center in Millwood became a sanctuary, not only for survivors and activists but for Sarah herself. She led workshops on resilience and self-compassion, drawing from her own experiences to inspire others. The center's summer programs thrived, focusing on healing through creativity, connection, and empowerment. One particularly poignant event was a storytelling night where survivors shared their journeys in raw, unfiltered honesty. The power of these narratives reinforced Sarah's conviction that change must be human-centered and rooted in empathy. Unexpectedly, a viral video emerged online, capturing a heated confrontation between Sarah and a vocal critic at a public forum. The clip was widely shared, dissected, and misinterpreted, sparking debates about her leadership style and the movement's direction. Sarah faced a wave of online harassment, echoing the painful patterns she had long fought against. Yet, this trial also galvanized her supporters, who rallied with messages of encouragement and solidarity. Sarah responded publicly with grace and vulnerability, reaffirming her commitment to the cause and to the values that had guided her journey. As summer waned, Sarah recognized the need to recharge and recalibrate. She planned a retreat with Jake and close friends to a quiet lakeside cabin, seeking respite from the chaos and space to reconnect with herself. The time away was restorative, filled with long walks, deep conversations, and moments of stillness. Sarah returned with renewed clarity and strength, ready to face the next chapter of the ongoing struggle. The checkers board sat in her living room, its worn surface a reminder that every move, no matter how difficult, held meaning. The game was far from over, but Sarah was learning that resilience, compassion, and connection were the keys to navigating even the most challenging turns. As autumn descended on Millwood, painting the trees in fiery hues of red and gold, Sarah felt the weight of the past month settle in her bones. The retreat had offered precious moments of peace, but the world she returned to was still fraught with challenges. The coalition faced renewed attacks, political opponents sought to dismantle the digital safety bill's provisions, questioning its impact on free speech and innovation. Social media platforms wrestled with balancing user protections and engagement metrics, often prioritizing the latter in ways that undermined progress. Sarah intensified her efforts, testifying before congressional committees and engaging in public forums to defend the cause. The tension between regulation and freedom became a central battleground, one where nuance was often lost in polarized rhetoric. In parallel, the partnership with Elon Musk entered a new, more delicate phase. Elon's ambitious ventures into artificial intelligence and virtual reality promised transformative possibilities, but also raised profound ethical dilemmas. Sarah pushed for robust safeguards, insisting that technology serve humanity's best interests rather than unchecked expansion. Their discussions were intense and sometimes fraught, reflecting the complexities of innovation in a world hungry for both progress and accountability. Meanwhile, Sarah's personal life grew richer and more complicated. Jake's career took a pivotal turn, presenting opportunities that required relocation. The couple faced difficult decisions about their future together, balancing love with individual aspirations. Marcus continued to offer steadfast friendship, his presence a source of comfort amid uncertainty. Family connections deepened as Sarah and David explored new pathways of understanding and forgiveness, recognizing that healing was an ongoing journey. The community center in Millwood remained a beacon of hope and resilience. Sarah launched a new initiative focused on youth leadership, empowering young people to become advocates for digital safety and mental health. The program quickly gained traction, inspiring a new generation to carry the torch forward. Sarah found joy in mentoring these emerging leaders, their passion and creativity renewing her own spirit. One crisp evening, Sarah received an urgent message about a spike in online harassment targeting a local teacher who had spoken out about the Checkers tragedy. The incident reignited community activism and underscored the persistent dangers lurking in digital spaces. Sarah mobilized resources, coordinated support, and brought media attention to the issue, reaffirming the coalition's commitment to protect the vulnerable. The emotional highs and lows of the work were constant companions. Sarah learned to embrace vulnerability as strength, sharing her story openly to inspire others. The checkers board in her home remained a silent witness to her journey, its worn squares symbolizing the battles fought and the moves yet to come. As autumn deepened, Sarah prepared for a national conference where she would share insights and advocate for continued progress. The road ahead was uncertain, but her resolve was unshaken. She understood that the fight for safer digital spaces was not a sprint but a marathon, one that required endurance, empathy, and unwavering hope. The game was still being played, and every move counted. The national conference was held in a grand convention center in Chicago, drawing a crowd of activists, policymakers, tech innovators, and survivors. Sarah arrived early, the energy in the air palpable with anticipation and tension. The event symbolized both how far the movement had come and the challenges that still lay ahead. As she stepped onto the stage to deliver her keynote, memories of the checkers tragedy. The viral video, the personal losses, the viral chaos, flooded her mind. She began by asking the audience a question that had guided her since the beginning: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? The room was silent, every ear attuned to her voice. She shared the story of the tragedy, not as a tale of victimhood, but as a call to collective action and empathy. Sarah emphasized that the digital world, though vast and often impersonal, was made up of real lives and emotions. She recounted the coalition's journey, from grassroots organizing in Millwood to influencing national policy, and the ongoing work to make online spaces safer and more compassionate. Throughout the speech, she wove in the challenges faced, the resistance from powerful tech companies, the complex ethics of AI moderation, and the persistent threat of harassment and misinformation. But she balanced these realities with stories of hope. The community center's healing programs, youth leaders stepping forward, and the small victories that inspired continued effort. After her speech, Sarah engaged in panels and workshops, discussing strategies to promote digital literacy, enforce accountability, and nurture empathy online. The conversations were intense and wide-ranging, exposing divisions but also forging new alliances. One particularly charged panel debated the role of free speech versus harm prevention, with voices from diverse perspectives clashing over where lines should be drawn. Sarah navigated these discussions with poise, advocating for policies that protected vulnerable users without stifling expression. Meanwhile, the spotlight on Elon Musk had grown even brighter. His ventures into AI and social media continued to make headlines, often stirring controversy. Sarah felt the strain of being associated with such a polarizing figure but also recognized the potential of leveraging his platforms for good. They coordinated behind the scenes, working to ensure that Musk's influence advanced the coalition's mission without overshadowing the movement's grassroots roots. During a private meeting, Elon surprised Sarah with a proposal for a new initiative, a digital empathy challenge, using virtual reality to put users in others' shoes, fostering understanding and kindness. Sarah embraced the idea cautiously, insisting on thorough ethical review and community input before launching. Outside the conference, Sarah reconnected with old allies and met new ones. The sense of shared purpose was invigorating, but the enormity of the task remained daunting. She also grappled with media attention, interviews, profiles, and the ever-present threat of misrepresentation. Through it all, Jake was a steady support, attending the conference with her and offering grounding amidst the whirlwind. After the event, Sarah returned to Millwood with renewed energy and a strategic plan for the next phase of the movement. She focused on expanding community programs, building coalitions, and fostering dialogue between tech companies and users. The checkers board at the community center had become a symbol of perseverance, each move a step toward a safer, more compassionate digital future. Yet, Sarah knew the final chapter was near. The stakes had never been higher, and the path forward would require courage, resilience, and unity. The game was reaching its climax, and every decision mattered more than ever. The final months of the year felt like the culmination of everything Sarah had fought for and endured. The Digital Empathy Challenge Elon Musk had championed was set to launch, promising a revolutionary way to humanize online interactions through immersive virtual reality experiences. Sarah had spent countless hours ensuring the project was guided by ethical principles and inclusive voices, determined it would not become another tool of manipulation but a genuine bridge of understanding. As the launch day approached, the atmosphere was electric. Media buzzed, tech communities buzzed, and so did the hearts of those who had walked this long, difficult path with Sarah. The Checkers tragedy that had sparked it all seemed both distant and vividly present in her mind, a reminder of the fragility and resilience of human connection. On launch day, Sarah stood alongside Elon, addressing a crowd that spanned from eager tech innovators to survivors and advocates from communities like Millwood. She spoke of the journey, the pain and hope, the battles and breakthroughs. She challenged everyone to move beyond conflict and fear, to choose empathy as a guiding force in the digital age. The Digital Empathy Challenge invited users to step into the lives of others, experiencing their struggles, joys, and perspectives firsthand. Early feedback was overwhelmingly positive, with many reporting profound shifts in how they engaged online and offline. The project was far from perfect, but it marked a hopeful step toward healing fractured digital landscapes. Meanwhile, Sarah's personal life found a new rhythm. Jake's career had stabilized, and they chose to build a life together in Millwood, rooted in shared values and mutual support. Marcus continued to be a treasured friend, and family relationships blossomed in unexpected ways. The community center thrived, a living testament to the power of collective action and compassion. Sarah reflected often on the lessons she had learned, that love and connection could transcend even the darkest moments, that technology was a tool shaped by human choices, and that courage often meant embracing vulnerability. The Checkers board remained in her living room, worn from years of symbolic moves, a reminder that every decision, every act of kindness or defiance, had shaped the path forward. As the year drew to a close, Sarah addressed a gathering of young leaders at the community center, encouraging them to carry the work onward. Life is full of surprises, she told them, but love will always lead the way. The game was far from over, but the pieces were in motion. The Checkers tragedy had sparked a movement that transcended any single person or moment. It was a testament to resilience, empathy, and the enduring power of human connection to shape a better future. Sarah knew challenges would come again, but armed with the lessons of the past and the strength of community, she faced the future with hope and determination. The final move was yet to be played, but the board was set, and the game was ready to continue. The new year hadn't even reached its second week when the backlash began. What had started as a quiet buzz on a fringe message board exploded across social media like wildfire. A series of leaked internal emails, taken out of context, implied that the Digital Empathy Project, the VR initiative Sarah had poured her heart into, was collecting emotional response data from users without their full knowledge. The headlines came fast and unforgiving: emotion mining in disguise. Musk and Marshall, surveillance behind the smiles. Sarah stared at the screen in disbelief. The Empathy Challenge had been built on consent, transparency, and strict ethical guidelines. She'd fought for every user-facing disclosure, pushed the developers to simplify language around data use, and created an oversight committee to ensure accountability. But now, her name was being dragged through the mud again, and this time, it felt more personal than ever. Reporters flooded her inbox. Protesters showed up outside the community center. Influencers who once championed her work posted snide comments, suggesting she'd sold out to big tech. And even worse, some of the young people she'd mentored began questioning her. Sarah hadn't felt this kind of betrayal since the early days of the Checkers tragedy, when the internet had turned her grief into content. The most painful part wasn't the lies. It was the doubt creeping into the people she loved and served. Elon called late at night, his voice tense but composed. "This is coordinated," he said. "The leak was intentional. Someone inside our VR division is trying to tank the entire project, probably over the board's pushback against our nonprofit structure." Sarah didn't doubt it. She'd seen firsthand how power reacted when it felt threatened by compassion. But she also knew public trust was fragile, and hard-won. "We need to go public," she told him. Not with a PR statement. A real, transparent walkthrough of how this tech works and exactly what it doesn't do. Elon hesitated. You'll get hammered even harder if something gets misunderstood. Sarah replied without flinching, then we explain it better. If we back down now, we look guilty, and we let them control the narrative. In the days that followed, Sarah took control of the story. She invited respected digital privacy experts to audit the project. She hosted live stream Q&As where she answered tough, sometimes vicious, questions from the public. And she released every internal document related to user consent, raw, unedited, and open-sourced. Her honesty didn't fix everything overnight. But slowly, voices of reason started pushing back against the firestorm. A handful of prominent journalists corrected their earlier reporting. A viral TikTok explained how the leaked emails were misrepresented. Parents in Millwood posted heartfelt videos defending Sarah's integrity. The empathy challenge saw a small bump in user traffic, nothing explosive, but it meant people were giving it a second chance. Still, the stress was taking a toll. Sarah slept less, ate rarely, and carried a constant ache in her shoulders that refused to let go. Jake became her anchor, insisting on nightly walks no matter how late she worked. "You're not a machine," he said one evening, handing her a thermos of tea. "You can't fight all of this alone." She leaned into his shoulder, letting the cold wind sting her cheeks. "I'm not trying to be a hero. I just don't know how to stop fighting." "Maybe it's not about stopping," he said. "Maybe it's about sharing the weight." That idea stuck with her. At the next coalition meeting, Sarah proposed something radical. Stepping down as the face of the movement. Not abandoning it, but creating a shared leadership model where new voices could take the spotlight. Some members resisted. "You're the reason this exists," one board member said. "We can't afford to lose your credibility." But Sarah shook her head. "My face is part of the problem. People either trust me too much or attack me personally. This is bigger than me now. It should be." In the following weeks, the coalition restructured. 5 rotating co-leaders were selected from different backgrounds: a high school teacher, a VR developer, a digital safety researcher, a trauma counselor, and a college student who'd experienced online abuse firsthand. Sarah remained involved as an advisor and mentor, but she deliberately stepped back from interviews, conferences, and social media. The difference was immediate. The movement became more relatable, more diverse, and less vulnerable to single-target attacks. The empathy challenge continued evolving. New modules were added, user data handling became even more user-controlled, and transparency dashboards allowed anyone to see how the platform functioned in real time. Elon's team took inspiration from Sarah's leadership shift and adopted similar decentralization practices across related projects. Sarah, meanwhile, found herself in a strange new season of life, quieter, slower, but no less meaningful. She taught weekly workshops at the community center, focusing on storytelling and emotional intelligence. She read more, wrote more, slept more. Occasionally, she'd still get stopped at the grocery store or the park by someone wanting to say thank you, or ask for advice, or, just once, challenge her on the past. She welcomed all of it. Because now, she knew how to carry it. One chilly afternoon, Sarah walked into her living room and stared at the old checkers board on her coffee table. She hadn't played in over a year. She sat down across from the empty seat, reached forward, and made the first move. Then another. Then another. She played both sides, letting the rhythm guide her hands, the memories flooding in without pain this time. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about presence. Intention. Understanding the weight of every piece, every square. Jake found her there an hour later, still quietly playing. He didn't say a word, just pulled up a chair and started moving his own pieces. The sun dipped low, casting golden light through the windows as two people played a simple game in a complicated world, holding space for everything they had lost and everything they still hoped to build. The tragedy that once went viral had become something else entirely, a symbol not of despair, but of transformation. The checkers board, scarred and sacred, had always been a story. And now, it belonged to everyone. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?